Ba ba da ba 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 da ba 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 ba. Ba 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 ba. Basically
Wow,
the
that's
same
Back
thing,
to the
right?
Future.
Yes, it is.
Yes. Well, welcome to Yelling at Gaseous Anomalies. I'm your host, Captain Matt Ross, accompanied by my co-host, XO Michael Pontone, in the wrong franchise, but it's close enough.
Mike,
Where it's not bad.
Doc Brown Pontone.
Oh my God, jumping gigawatts. This is not that episode. This is tonight's very special time travel, or timey-wimey as the kids say today. The City on the Edge of Forever. This is the one that everyone says is the best Star Trek episode ever written or
It's
ever
not.
shown. It's not. I agree
It's
with
not
that.
even the best TOS. Not even close.
No,
So,
I would go with that. But this is the one that everyone always thinks to. It's actually a very sweet and very heartfelt story. It's very well done. It's sort of written by Harlan Ellison, and it's actually more written by Gene Kuhn, Gene Roddenberry, and secretly D.C. Fontana and Stephen Karabatsos. And you know why I say that is because that's actually what happened. The original story, which you can actually get from the IDW comic book, The City on the Edge of Forever, has a whole different plot and storyline involved.
with the Harlan Ellison's original story.
Harlan Ellison's original story. There are elements of Harlan Ellison's story in here. The City on the Edge of Forever isn't what you see here. It's a whole different thing. But let's go into it just starting from the beginning. This is from April 1, 1967. I really enjoy this episode. It's one of my favorite Star Treks, just in general. It's the time travel where Kirk and Spock go back to the 1930s New York to try and stop a change in history affected by a drug-induced Dr. McCoy.
Oh, yeah.
Who's high on cordrazine, a special made-up adrenaline equivalent. So what do you, just your first reactions, what's your general feeling on this one? Did you like this one in general, or is it better than the alternative factor, although they kind of start the same way?
I guess riffs through time. Yeah, no, of course, I dig it. It was, what's not to like? It was a good old-fashioned great Star Trek episode. We're going to get into it piece by piece. It was kind of just a little by the numbers, but I guess if you were watching this for the first time, it would have certainly, would have kind of struck you as a truly unique story. I'm trying to figure out how much time. Already in Star Trek TOS Season 1, we've had a fair amount of time travel. We had Yesterday's Tomorrow, and we've had this now. We've had a bunch of different things. The interesting thing is, I could tell a little bit that this was chopped up in terms of the script, and I'm going to quiz you, or not quiz you because I don't know the answer. I'm going to pick your brain as to the IDW comic and Harlan Ellison's original vision, because you got three storylines here, right? You've got Dr. Crazy and Out of Control, which I love. Those are my favorite parts of the show. You've got this Guardian of Time. That in and of itself could be this whole thing where there's this machine or spirit or something that doesn't even remember what it is, but that creates this time portal. And then you've got obviously the grandfather paradox of Edith Keeler. So, Captain, don't keep me in suspense. What was Harlan Ellison's original vision?
Well, before we talk about Harlan Ellison's original vision, let's talk about what TV Guide said about it, because that's actually pretty interesting. Tonight's science fiction drama is set in the past. Under the influence of drugs, Dr. McCoy plunges through a time portal and into New York City of the 1930s. Kirk, Spock follow him, fearing the drugged medical officer might commit an act that will alter the course of history. I'm not going to read the rest of the TV Guide close-up, which goes on for another 2 paragraphs, but that is essentially the summary. That is also sort of the idea of Harlan Ellison's work. Harlan Ellison originally wrote his work, and by the way, you can get the trade paperback on Amazon if you're lucky. It's called The City on the Edge of Forever by IDW Comics. I also have the individual issues. I can only so far find issues 1 and 4 in my pile of stuff. I'll take a picture of them for the community page. But It starts off with a drug deal on the Enterprise. Harlan Ellison said, like on a
drug
ship,
deal?
a drug deal.
Oh,
He's
like
trying to
between
make,
the non-commissioned?
yes, between the non-commissions. He was going on the theory that someone, like even in real Navy ships or any military group, there's usually one bad actor or more. And this starts off with a drug dealer who's selling a drug that allows you to experience memories of a different type. The name of the drug dealer is Beckworth. Beckworth kills the person he sells the drugs to because Lebec, the drug user, who's like seeing colors while on the drug, is going to turn him into the captain. And as he's sentenced to death in a court-martial on the Enterprise, he flees to a planet below where he runs into people known as the Guardians of Forever. Not a machine, but 10 people guarding a time machine. It's in a city that looks like it spreads on forever. And he goes back in time and he changes history by preaching something to a woman named Edith Kester, and Kirk and Spock go back in time to try and stop him. So it's got
Captain,
some of that.
Hot take. Listen, and everyone, I don't know how many of our listeners know Harlan Ellison. He's an absolutely amazing giant of 20th century science fiction literature. Prolific.
He wrote your favorite short story.
One of my favorite short stories, yes. I Have No Mouth.
What's the
and
name
I Must
of it?
Scream. I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream.
Right.
He's done a lot of stuff. And again, Matt, he is prolific. He was huge in Hollywood. He wrote the Outer Limits episodes that were then plagiarized for the Terminator, and he won a successful civil suit against James Cameron. And now when you watch the original Terminator, it says based on story ideas created by Harlan Ellison.
Which story was that? That's not Demon with a Glass Hand, was it?
It is.
Because that's
So
what he
it was
won.
two.
Oh, it is?
It was Demon with a Glass Hand, and it was Soldier. And Matt, if you look at Soldier, the
Oh,
opening
yes, that
shot
one I
of
know.
Soldier looks just like the opening shot of the Terminator, where you have this barren landscape in the future with lightning in the distance. James Cameron literally used the opening to that as like a storyboard, which I'm fascinated that when he actually got sued, he even fought, because he was also, he had said in an interview when they said, "Where'd you come up with the idea?" He's like, I just ripped it off from some old Outer Limits episodes.
It's not really a surprise. I mean, Harlan Ellison is 5'5", he's a little runt of a guy, and he probably had a big ego trying to compensate. He liked to sue everybody.
Very
and
litigious.
he was very bitter about how these changes are. But yeah, he sued a lot of people.
Wait, no, hold on. I got sidetracked just to say that as much as I love Harlan Ellison, what you described is great for a gritty Battlestar Galactica-esque show, not for Star Trek. So whoever took it away from him and changed it to what it is did a good job.
Yeah, what had actually happened, they gave him the assignment in March of 1967, and he didn't hand in anything. I'm sorry, March of 1966. His first draft came out 5 months later, and then the second draft after that. And all the producers and writers were like, "Come on already!" And our favorite money man, Robert Justman, saying like, "How are we going to show a person seeing things with colors when most people still have black and white televisions? And you have too many sets. It's not believable that the Enterprise wouldn't see a giant city." He also had them beaming down like 5 miles away from the city. And Justman says, no wonder they're all like always having broken down stuff. They beam too far away for it and waste too much time. So there was a lot of issues. Harlan Ellison argued with Robert Justman. Gene Coon rewrote it, and Harlan Ellison immediately hated Gene Coon. Gene Roddenberry did the final draft, and that caused the biggest rift between them for years, which caused lawsuits and anger. And at conventions, Harlan Ellison said, the only thing that is related to my story is the title. In fact, he wanted to go under a pseudonym called Cordwainer Bird, meaning flipping the bird at the man, based off of another science fiction writer's name, Cordwainer. And Justman says if he wants to do that, then, we'll blackball him in the industry. And actually, Roddenberry threatened to blackball him in the industry. But at the Writers Guild of America awards that year, The original script, the very first treatment of the City of the Edge of Forever, went up against Return of the Archons, City on the Edge of Forever 1. It was a beautiful story.
Oh boy, what a slap in the face.
Right, but you know what? And all the writers said, look, we're sticking it to all the producers and money people that are producing our work. So it's kind of like biting the hands that feeds them. I don't know. It's always this us versus them mentality. We could even see that in the most recent writer's strike in a lot of ways. But I think that the retelling with Roddenberry, Gene Kuhn, and Dorothy Fontana, who actually kept her writing on its secret because she didn't want to face the ire of Harlan Ellison, the 5/5 terror. What they've done is made a more coherent story that fits Star Trek. Fontana said, classically, he wrote a very beautiful story of love, loss, adventure, and science fiction. It just didn't fit the Star Trek mold, and I have to agree. You'll just have to actually read the comic, and I would recommend getting it for yourself, the IDW trade paperback. If you could find it, less than $100, good luck.
Oh my goodness! Can I just borrow your copy, Captain?
And touch my fine plastic bagged comic? Yes, you can. Of course you can. So there were 17 redrafts of this. I have to tell you that. 17 redrafts. He really needed to work on it. He was also upset he didn't get paid for the first couple of the episodes. First couple of redrafts, rather. They got rid of Beckworth and they made that McCoy. The network was afraid of the drug use, which, sounds like NBC. So the Fontana made up the drug cordrazine, not adrenaline. So when we start at the very beginning, again, just like in the alternative factor, the Enterprise has got stuck in some sort of time waves around a planet. And Starfleet engine...
Waves of time, back again.
Yes.
The nemesis.
Yes, pretty much. And then, of course, the bridge displays explode, affecting Sulu with his too much eyeshadow. And that's when McCoy comes on and...
Oh, yeah.
A lot of eyeshadow. That is the fabulous thing to do.
And a terrible, terrible reaction to getting that drug when he just
hey, man.
His eyes flutter up. And again, you pointed it out, and I had never thought about it, that maybe the reason why Shatner was maybe a little professional and focused and maybe a little salty to smaller actors like Sulu is because okay, Sulu, you've got to open your eyes and flutter your eyes and smile. Kirk, you have to learn 30 pages of dialogue by tomorrow. Go.
Yeah, pretty much. Also with weird phraseology. No worries. Okay. Yeah, no, it was, I understand that. But I mean, it was actually, I like the opening scene where McCoy's giving him stuff and Kirk's saying, you sure that's okay? That's powerful stuff. And of course, it's like, you're telling me my business, Jim?
You were about to make a medical comment, Jim.
But then, like a putz, the Enterprise shakes and McCoy falls into his own injection. And he injects himself the hypo spray. The full hypo spray is dose of all that drug, which can make you go crazy. And of course, you told me you wanted to act like Dr. McCoy today in court whenever you appear in any courthouses. What does he yell?
Murderers!
Killers! Assassins! All right! I'll kill you first!
Murderers! Assassins!
Let me know how that...
I'll kill you before you do.
Let me know how that works out. If you need bail, I might be able to help you. So...
Just rolling in there and be like, you see, as attorneys and litigators, Matt and I are constantly being asked to do the Vulcan route of, just being very calm and your emotions in check. And you better believe some days I just want to be like, fuck you all. Yeah, I'll kill you. Are you kidding me? I'm not dealing with this bullshit.
Yeah, if I recall correctly, the correct phrase is either I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore. You could look at it that way, but that's from the TV show, the movie Network.
Yeah, never saw that. Actually.
Well, let's see. So in the meantime, while they're hunting down McCoy, yay security, they can't find the doctor on the ship. McCoy karate chops Chief Kyle. Chief Kyle is his second appearance and beams himself down to the planet. They're trying to figure out what they're going to do. Kirk, Spock, Scotty, Uhura, and 2 security guards, including Lieutenant Galloway, who was in a previous episode, I believe in Miri. They go down to the planet to look for him, and you see all these ancient ruins in a giant metal hole. By the way, in the
Well, no, like an arch.
An
And it's
arch,
not
yes.
metal, it's stone.
Well, it's something. But yeah, I will tell you what. Here's a little funny thing. Matt Jeffries was out sick, so his assistant was making it, and he misunderstood the description of what they were trying to make the planet. The original script said they saw structures with runes, runes, and he read it as ruins, ruins. So that's why you see ruins, and that's actually pretty funny, I think. So
I mean, that is interesting. But that being said, it works. And also, I think I did see some runes.
yes, there were runes.
Were there not some runes on the arch?
Yes, there were runes on the arch. They had it all over the place. I actually enjoyed the way it looked. When they get down to the planet, this mysterious planet, you don't know what's going on, and you see McCoy hiding among all the ruins as they're walking around. I actually did like the way it looked. You got the idea of a ruined civilization, and you see the giant archway or circle over there when you don't know what it is. And as everyone's looking for McCoy, Kirk and Spock are examining these things, and they're pretty much saying, I wonder what this is. And that actually activates the archway. It says, a question. And it has some of the most haunting and wonderful dialogue about saying how it's been there since before our sun was burning and before we were even a race.
A question. Since before your sun burned hot in space, and before your race was born, I have awaited a question.
It's been waiting for a question, and that is not James Doohan is the voice. I'll get you that in a second. By the way, Roland Brooks is Matt Jeffries' assistant, and they kept saying like this is what you did with the set. That donut is supposed to be some sort of time thing, and then Jeffrey said, whatever.
What's wrong with these freaking high maintenance?
Nah,
you show me something
he
better.
said it was fine.
This is great.
I liked it.
About to say, what's everyone complaining about?
Oh, if where I think therefore I complain. Isn't that part of Descartes' mantra over there? Isn't that true? Where it is?
Coincidentally, you still haven't read I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream, but do you know what the name of the villain in that is?
No, what is it?
AM, AM, and it started off as Allied Master Computer, then Aggressive Menace, and then it simply became when it became completely sentient. It was like am. I think therefore I am. I am am.
Oh, that's cool.
Very chilling stuff actually. Am is like so angry too. He's like the opposite of cold and calculating. He's just like a strung out, moody, the equivalent of like a moody, sadistic teenager who's so trapped in his own body and flailing and so angry that humans, they say like it's the equivalent of being a quadriplegic. Like you've made me and I'm caught in time and space and bound to this. Anyway, whatever. I'm going off on a tangent. Nothing to do with tonight's episode. Read Harlan Ellison, kids.
Okay, but it's Bart LaRue who played the voice of the Guardian. He's in a lot of other things. He's also in later episodes. He's in Bread and Circuses as voices, Game Masters of Triskelion, and Patterns of Force in the Savage Curtain. So that is pretty cool. But this doorway opens up first with smoke, and you get to see like these film clips. Well, actually, I actually thought that was pretty well done. These black and white film clips. The original idea was to have a vortex, and Justman was saying, like, if I have to do a vortex, I'm gonna jump into one of these things. Actually, that's one of his phrases. So like he actually said of Harlan Ellison, at one point after reading some of his pages, I suddenly was mean to my wife and children after reading your work, Harlan. But it's really so they had to come up with an idea, and I think it's actually pretty cool. I don't mind the smoke there, and then you see these things which are clearly from the Paramount film archive, but it actually fits different time periods, starting with like desert warfare and age of exploration. And in one of these, suddenly, and they're getting to more modern times, you see like right before World War II, that's when McCoy breaks through everyone and jumps right through. And then suddenly, what are we going to do? And they say, well, we better call the Enterprise.
Federation's gone.
And everything's gone. The Enterprise is gone. And they're like, what do we do now? We're totally alone, Kirk says as he looks up to the heavens. Because the Guardian reveals that whatever McCoy did has changed history. I actually like that entire little bit. what did you think about that with McCoy jumping in and then the fade up to the Enterprise? Or where was the Enterprise?
I thought it was great. I thought that the explanation was fantastic. Again, it's like you can do anything as a writer to make your story better.
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm trying to say is, they asked the very obvious question, like why us? Why are you showing us Earth? Why this time? When they go back in time, they're saying why would McCoy be here and not in like outer Mongolia? And he said the Guardian is interested in the viewer.
Mm-hmm.
It's giving the experience. If there was a Klingon there, he would not be showing him and giving him a portal to Earth past.
Right.
It's tailored, and it took one line, and all it took. It took a writer saying, let's give a quick explanation, so that way it's not just coincidental that in all the times in all of human history, in all of any history, alien or human, we chose this time.
Right. It's also very impactful. You see like highlights of different things, and that the fact that I guess you could say like this is the butterfly effect before the butterfly effect. And just for our listening audience, that's like you go back in time and you step on an insect that could actually affect the course of all history. In fact, The Simpsons did that humorously.
I was about to say, you better put in The Simpsons about what my father told me on my wedding day.
That's actually, I love that thing with the raining donuts. What are you going to do?
Marge, dear, would you kindly pass me a donut?
Donut? What's a donut?
That's...
I've used, I don't know, I mean, because I'm ladies and gentlemen, I'm a dashing, handsome young man. That's my claim, and I'm sticking to it. But I am a bit of a klutz at times.
Yes.
And the bit from that where Homer keeps lodging his hand in the toaster, and he does it twice in a row, and he gets it off, and he sighs, and he slinks down, and he goes in, and Bart says, "Dad, it's in there again." I like how the kids are worried about it.
Yeah, well,
But anyway.
he earns income as bad as it is. I do like that, though, when we come back from commercial, as Kirk is staring up at nothing, he's like, what are we going to do? It starts off with Stardate Unknown, because they don't know what's going on. Now, in the original Harlan Ellison script, the Enterprise is in orbit, but it's some sort of evil pirate ship. They go up to the ship, and they actually have to hold off the evil crew, which is not a Federation crew, but literally they are like space pirates, from breaking in. And Justman said, that's an extra scene with more beaming. Let's edit that out. In fact, they all did edit it out. Karabastis, Kuhn, Roddenberry, Fontana. It just didn't fit the Star Trek vibe. I think what they have here is actually smoother and better, where they figure out that they ask the Guardian, what can we do? It goes, well, you can go back and you can sort of fix it and make everything will come back to normal. But then he approaches the crew, and I actually like the scene. I think the saddest sounding point of that is what Uhura says. Scotty says good luck to Kirk, and Uhura follows up with happiness at least. Because if they fail, he orders Scotty, depending on what you think is waiting long enough, to everyone go in turn to see if we can fix something. And hopefully they'll fix it. That's actually a depressing sounding thing, but it gives you a little bit of hope that maybe they'll be able to do it. I love that line Nichelle Nichols reads it over there, where she goes, happiness at least, in like almost a pensive, scared sound. I thought it was brilliantly read.
Good luck, gentlemen.
Happiness at least, sir.
But now we jump back in town into Mayberry again. That's the same town where Miri is from.
Yeah, I figured that. Although, honestly, I don't know what they did. Again, good set designers, good director.
Yes, it's Joseph Pepney.
I bought it.
Joseph Pepney.
God bless you, Joseph Pepney.
Joseph Pepney, the hero of Star Trek Season 1 and 2, and then next to Mark Daniels. That he did excellent work here. But even he couldn't do this in his normal 6 days. This was 7. This was brilliant. They land there. You kind of believe it's a New York City street. From the grit, the paper. New York City doesn't look like that in 2024. It looks brighter and has...
Much worse.
In some different ways, it's much worse. But in other ways, it is cleaner.
It's much worse. Are you kidding me? Dude, when they get to the mission, I'm like, hey, that food looks pretty good.
Yeah, the mission is.
And like, look at the nice fresh bread, hot coffee.
There's actually a mission like that, a kitchen like that across from 111 Center Street in New York City. It's unfortunate we have to go through these things, but they're there to help people. I do like the way when they get down there, everyone's staring at Kirk and Spock because they're not dressed normally for 1930 style. And Kirk says, I get, Spock's going to say, like, how are we going to explain me? We'll think of something.
I'm afraid I'm going to be difficult to explain in any case, Captain.
Well, Mr. Spock, if we can't disguise you, we'll find some way of explaining it.
That should prove interesting.
It's like, yeah.
Chinese.
Yeah, that's actually pretty funny. They actually, before almost getting run over by a car, because Spock's like, oh, that's pretty cool looking. They decide Kirk decides to steal clothes hanging on a fire escape, and that's where they run into a cop going, well, what's your story? And that's where we get that famous line about having Spock's ears caught in a mechanical rice picker.
Caught his head in a mechanical rice picker. But fortunately, there was an American missionary living close by who was actually a skilled plastic surgeon in civilian life.
That's Gene Kuhn. You can tell just by the humor. Because Roddenberry doesn't put it humor.
I thought everything was good. I mean, again, that little sequence of them just stealing the clothes, it was funny. It was good. There was a callback, I guess, I didn't realize in Star Trek 4 when he gets hit by the car. He almost gets hit by the car and he says, double dumbass on you. I mean, again, they almost get hit by a car and stare dumbfoundedly at it.
Well, that's part of it. You will see that they run into cars again later, more prevalently in the story, A Piece of the Action. That's in the third season, I believe. The one, or maybe that's second season. The police officer, by the way, who was played by Hal Baylor, he was a boxer. He's actually in another episode in the third season called Alon of Troyes. He's a big, tall guy, and he looks it in this, too. I wouldn't want to mess with him if he was a cop, I'll tell you that much. He seems like he could kick your butt, but of course he was a boxer.
About to say, good looking cop, very intimidating. Looked like you could take out Kirk and Spock. Although, I mean, again, they're kind of forgetting that Spock could wipe the floor with him. He's a Vulcan. He's twice as strong as him.
Right, but it's good to see that things aren't like totally lawless, which is actually nice. And as the cop says, "Come on, you're coming with me down there," they effectuated an escape by Spock doing the Vulcan nerve bridge on the cop, and they're running for their lives with your favorite music in the background from Shore Leave. Finnegan's music gets used again for the chase scene.
No, boy. I mean, I did like that,
like
yes.
I know you love that chase music. That's why I'll always put it in.
I like the music. I'm not going to lie.
And I
just hate the episode.
And then, Shore Leave. But this episode's fun. And then they run into the basement of this mission, the 2nd Street mission. And they're basically down there, and Kirk says to Spock, actually Spock first says, I could probably get the information so we could figure out where McCoy is, but it's stuck on this tricorder and we have no way of accessing it. If I had the ship's computer, and that actually comes some of the funnier scenes in this episode where Kirk and Spock are trying to figure out how to make their technology work, as Spock says in this zinc-plated Stone Age era, it's going to be difficult to do it, and Kirk kind of uses reverse psychology, saying, well, it is a tough problem, but sometimes I expect too much of you. So I actually enjoyed that, and that's where you meet our main star love interest, right, that comes down there. We have who do we have coming down? Do you remember who comes down the stairs?
Edith
Keeler, played by everyone's favorite darling, Joan Collins.
Joan Collins.
One of the
good-looking
lady. She
was
a star of her own right at that time in various TV shows. What was interesting from what I read in our Bible about Star Trek is that stars wanted to either be on Mission Impossible or Star Trek.
I mean, I would know what I would pick, obviously.
You'd probably be on Batman. That's what you'd probably be. So you could
oh, yeah. Are you kidding me? I would have loved that.
You got to climb the side of the building.
Dude.
Or actually open the side.
I wish. There's nothing. If they did, you know what they should really do? You know what would be $1 million idea? If they did Batman 66 today.
Well,
You know what I mean? Same style, recast Batman and Robin, the villains, and had the same cameos sticking their heads out of the side of the building. Absolutely.
And sometimes you just can't get rid of a bomb, as Adam West's Batman said. That was a really weird movie. But it's fun. So this is where we meet Edith Keeler, and she's like, who the heck are you guys? And Kirk, using his Kirkish charms, basically says, like, listen, we were cold and we had nowhere else to go. And she goes, you're liars, but I'll hire you for 15 cents an hour, which is $2.98 in today's money. That's in 2024. Back.
Oh, God.
So that's below minimum wage even for when I was a kid. But 15 cents an hour in the 30s could actually buy you some things. So
I guess that's true. I guess that spending power has gone way down
well,
too.
remember, it's an hour, not per day. My grandfather once told me when he was in the Great Depression, which is where this is taking place, he actually went to White Castle and he bought 2 burgers and a coffee for 15 cents. But that was can't do that anymore. I think they're all like 75 cents to $1 a burger in some of these places. Anywho, that's how we meet our main characters. We got Edith Keeler. We got to figure out how to activate the tricorder, figure out what McCoy did in the past, and we are on our way. So what did you think of this little setup over here? Were you curious what they were going to do next? Did you feel their kind of hopelessness in this situation, or?
No, I mean, I dug it. I thought it was good. I think it's a great plot, and a great ratcheting up of tension. We have Spock doing his thing. We have Kirk falling in love. Again, it's kind of a cliche, but it still works. Kirk looks fantastic in regular old person clothes.
Yes.
The double-breasted wool
Peacoat.
jacket.
Yes.
And I'm kind of amazed, honestly. I mean, and one of my guilty pleasure movies, although I don't even consider it a guilty pleasure movie. I love this movie unabashedly. I love Back to the Future Part 3.
Oh, it's great.
It is one of my favorite films of all time, actually. It makes my top 50 list. People have made fun of me and judged
Why?
me. But I think
it's a great story.
I don't know. I mean, it's a great story. It's a great love story. It's a great ratcheting up of tension. But that being said, my goodness, there are a lot of parallels between Back to the Future 3 and this.
Well, yes, they are in the past. There is no Doc Brown, and they don't need to make a giant compressor to make ice cubes. But it is a lot of fun.
Wait, there's so many parallels that they're in the past. One of them falls in love with someone that they're not supposed to. That person is supposed to die in order to preserve the timeline. The other person is doing a bunch of sciencey things while the other guy is going around town and getting mixed up in the local affairs of the society. Absolutely, there are thousands.
Well, you could do that with most time travel stories too. You could even say, you could tangentially say that Terminator 2 has some sort of love story, as well as actually it's Terminator itself. But more importantly, getting back to Star Trek, what I thought was nice is they have Joan Collins' speech to everyone in the soup kitchen, and she's like almost prescient into the future about how humanity will harness the atom and then go into space and find cures and to all that ails us as they go on their adventures. I actually enjoyed that little speech, and it actually shows. I like the idea that it's like she almost can predict the future herself, although she's not really. It's kind of basically saying that people want to have better things. They do have a sense of hope. Unlike modern Trek, which also has a Guardian Forever moment in it too, this one you get an idea that there's always a possibility that things are going to get better. What we next come to, though, is watching Spock using vacuum tubes and various electronic doodads to access the tricorder. And I think that's one of the funniest lines in this episode. It goes, "Captain, I need a small block of platinum, about 5-6 pounds." "Oh, you can't even do that today." Just like, yeah, let's just go to the platinum store. We can just do that. "Hey, Mike, you want to go meet me at the platinum store tomorrow?" And like,
I mean, that's called the Diamond District in New York City.
yeah, but
you and I could, if we had the money, buy a gigantic block of platinum, but it would be it would be a little
Yeah,
costly.
a lot costly. I mean, but it also makes you wonder about the future. It's like, yeah, I'll just go to the replicator and get a block of platinum, or just go to the stores, because money has a different meaning and also valuable items.
Captain, I must have some platinum. A small block would be sufficient, 5 or 6 pounds.
I mean, the Ferengi like gold pressed latinum, which is in TNG and Deep Space Nine, but humanity has moved beyond the idea of money as we understand it today. But at least you could buy like a roll in salami and vegetables, and that's when Edith Keeler comes in.
Yeah, is this the first time that we have a reference to Vulcans being vegetarians?
Yes, actually it is. But what I do like,
pretty
what
smart.
I do like about this is that she comes in asking, "What are they doing?" And Spock has that classic line. He goes, "I'm trying to make a mnemonic memory circuit with stone knives and bearskin." She's like, whatever. I just, better just tell her the truth. Is like, in a way, they get.
Yeah, I gotta say, for this woman who's been around, a lot of drunks and drug addicts and laudanum addicts, and by the way, guys, don't be nostalgic. There were dope fiends and criminals, and there was violence and stabbings and random acts of violence, basically as much back then as there is now.
As always.
So the point, right? The fact that the idea that this woman would just be like, two grown men lurking in my basement.
Yeah,
they seem fine to me.
She's very trusting. Very trusting.
Yeah,
that's
seriously.
more than being a do-getter. I'll tell you that much. I do like the fact that when they get the second job, there is banter back and forth. Spock steals some tools, and when Edith confronts them, she says, "I'm gonna turn you in unless, Kirk, you walk me home." Very, very innocent walking home. But what I think is funny is that she goes, "I have some questions," and she has that line, "Oh, don't give me that little old us look." That's actually one of the best lines in this episode, and it's very haunting. About, like, where do you think we belong? And then she tells them.
Where would you estimate we belong, Miss Keeler?
You? At his side, as if you've always been there and always will. And you belong in another place.
Yeah.
And it's very telling for all of Star Trek, because she surmises that Kirk is somewhere else and Spock would be always at Kirk's side. And for the most part, that's true for the rest of Star Trek. It is, but
true.
the way it's said with that music, it's very haunting. I find it very, I don't know, it hits me. I grok it, if you will. It's just something about it. It just makes me feel like tingly when I watch it. I don't know. How did that make you feel when she kind of confronts them, like she's kind of figuring them out? Did you have anything thinking of that? I mean, it's not Star Trek 4 of like, where are you from, outer space? This is more like she has like some sort of inkling that they don't belong in human society at this time period. I don't know.
I mean, listen, Gene Roddenberry is always a fan of showcasing women's intuition. It's here. It's in Star Trek 4. It's the fact that when he has more control over the series, he puts a literal empath at the left hand of the captain of the flagship. So yeah, I mean, it's very cute. It's plenty of echoes of future Trek. Yeah, no, it's a nice little moment, and obviously I love the Spock Kirk bromance that we see repeated over and over again throughout this first season. So yeah, what's
exactly.
Not to like?
And then just to jump ahead, even though the three most important words are not "I love you," but "let me help." But when Kirk does come back and you've got more vacuum tubes and more wires all over the place, Spock has discovered that Edith Keeler dies in a car accident, or she actually speaks to FDR and advocates peace while the rise of the Nazis is happening in Germany. Kirk thinks that's great. She advocates peace and meets the president. And Spock points out to Kirk that if that happens, that delays the United States going into war. The Nazis are able to complete their atomic weapons experiments, use it on V-1 and V-2 rockets, and pretty much destroy the Allies and take over the planet. That wouldn't necessarily erase the Federation. I'm not saying that, because basically the idea of Star Trek, even though, and I've said this before, Star Trek is a post-apocalyptic world. The world order that created the apocalypse before Star Trek is based on the Allies winning World War II. And if the Allies didn't win and the Nazis won, there probably wouldn't have been a federation. Probably been a lot less people, too.
Sure.
So that little
listen,
thing was, I found that very disturbing. I don't know. I actually enjoyed it. It's an interesting time paradox or time question, and it's clear that McCoy had something to do with it. What were your feelings as to that? With the thoughts of how they...
No, I'm always fascinated by unforeseen consequences, and they explore this in Tapestry, one of the best TNG episodes. The folly of regret, thinking that you could go back and your life would be completely different if only one thing had changed, except who knows, maybe it would be infinitely worse. And there's a great novel by Stephen King, not horror actually, decidedly much more science fiction, called 11/22/63.
Oh, that's the time travel one with John F. Kennedy. Yes,
JFK.
yes.
Correct.
No,
Did
I
you ever read
haven't. One of my friends and one of our listeners actually liked it. Hi, Maddie. So, but you know.
So in that one, it really it's a guy who, spoilers for an 800-page Stephen King book. Don't worry, it's all about the journey. The protagonist is able to get to prevent the death of JFK, and he goes back, and it's an apocalyptic 2010. He's in Maine, except that it's like it feels almost tropical, and it was a very, very reasonable explanation as to how things could have gone wrong. He said, basically, okay, JFK doesn't get gets reelected, doesn't get killed, and things escalate in the Vietnam War to the point where there's a backlash, and they go towards, and he's a champion of civil rights. So there's a backlash, and a very conservative leader, George Wallace, who was a prominent and out racist politician in the 1960s, gets elected to president, just because there's always kind of a clapback. We had Barack Obama, then we had Donald Trump. So then George Wallace is the president during the Vietnam War, and he's just as like, well, I'm fine firing nukes, and then it's a shooting war.
Right.
So the point is, you got no idea how things could have been even if tragedy is averted. Sorry.
Yeah, I know, but there's also a DC comic series that was very short-lived called Time Warp, in where someone in the far future takes a laser rifle, goes back in time, and kills Hitler, which makes the Nazis win. Because as he kills Hitler, SS soldiers shoot him, then examine his rifle, and then the Nazis are all armed with laser rifles. And so then the last scene of the comic is a whole bunch of people aiming at the other person with the other rifle, and they're all saying, "You know what you must do," and so it never ends. But in this one with the time travel, it's something that, McCoy suddenly appears. He chases down this guy who's by the way, his name is Rodent, and Rodent says to him, "You must be high on the sauce." McCoy passes out, and this guy steals his phaser and overloads it while staring at it. By the way, it's a very expensive effect that happened, but I thought that was very well done.
Overloads it? I thought that he just accidentally shot himself.
No, he overloads it, and it basically explodes on him, so he just disintegrates. So that's pretty cool. You could say he shot himself, and it disintegrated the thing he was shooting, but I actually like that. But then we come to that point where you want to scream like you do on like all films. Just turn around. McCoy wanders into the mission, and he says, "I'll have a cup of coffee," and Edith Keeler takes him to a back room, and then Spock comes out to like relieve her to serve coffee. It's like they're right there. But it also shows something that Spock pointed out in the beginning, that there are eddies and flows in time where they'll all be right next to each other. That's why McCoy is not going to be in outer Mongolia. They're going to be in an area that they're all going to have some sort of effect, and this is where he winds up. But you could see, McCoy coming from a peacenik, happy society, when he comes off whatever, he could probably convince Edith to go create a non-interventionist movement, a peace movement, which is what Kirk and Spock discover, and that's what keeps the Allies out of World War II. So they realize that Edith Keeler must die in a car accident, and that's where Kirk expresses that he's in love with Edith Keeler, but, Spock points out the logic to it.
Spock, I believe I'm in love with Edith Keeler.
Jim, Edith Keeler must die.
Edith Keeler has to die, and, Kirk can't deal with it. He's like, I can't believe this. Just as another aside, a DC Comics annual of Star Trek, the Klingons use their mind sifter against the Enterprise crew, and they make Kirk remember Edith Keeler, and he beats the crap out of a Klingon just for that.
Yeah, rightfully so.
Right.
I mean, we can jump. I think that we can jump ahead to the point of can we go to the climax? I mean, everything else is basically. So there was the last moment where everything happens at once. Spock and Kirk are there. They see McCoy. They run and they hug each other like a bunch of beautiful bros that love each other. And then she runs. She gets hit by the car, and the way that Kirk recoils in horror and holds his friends, and they hold him back, it was really moving. And it showed a lot of vulnerability amongst these Navy men. You know what I mean?
It's you can see at first you think that Kirk is holding himself back, but he actually holds McCoy back. And that last line, "Do you realize I could have saved her? Do you know what you've just done?" Yeah. That last line of Spock saying he knows, it was really very powerful. That entire bit with the sad music that goes with it. It's like you almost kind of want to you're like, I can't believe it. It's like you're almost gasping with sadness. Like you feel bad for James Kirk, but you're happy in some regards. Although this person had to die, she had to die for our world to exist. But it's still very sad. It's a melancholy ending.
Do you know what you just did? He knows, Doctor. He knows.
And then they come back to the planet where they're on, and Scotty pretty much says, "Sir, you just left. What happened?" Spock says they were successful. They have McCoy. The Enterprise is there. The Guardian says, "You can use me for many adventures." And Kirk says that famous last line, which the network first objected to. But they fought for it and they kept it in. And his line is, "Let's get the hell out of here." And that, you can't end it on a better note than that. He's 100% correct.
And he's just honest. That's the thing. You know what I mean? It's just like, you know what? This sucked. Everything was bad. Let's just get the hell out of here.
Yeah, you kind of want to quarantine this planet. But they actually come back to this planet. They use the Guardian of Forever in the animated series, one of the best episodes involving Mr. Spock, which we'll eventually get to, called Yesteryear. It's also in several books. Yesterday's Sun, a Star Trek novel. It's also implied in other things, but most recently it was in Star Trek Discovery. They turned the Guardian's gateway into a person named Carl, so I'm going to tell you right now, I hated that idea. They also moved the planet. It was ridiculous. But the idea was still having...
Well, if we have an extremely old and immeasurably wise, elemental force, let's name him Carl.
Carl and make him a person, even though the machine said he's neither machine nor alive. It's a little ridiculous. Well, that's the episode. I will tell you, it's one of the most expensive episodes ever written.
I was about to say, it looks like it. We had special effects. We had the entire crew in kind of like a nice ensemble shot, and we had locations and extras, all sorts of different things.
Well, I will tell you, they were complaining about it. They had to spend 10 cents a foot of film, which doesn't sound like, except that's $94 a foot. This took 7.5 days to film. It cost $245,316 in 1967, which today is $2,306,770.98. It's a lot of money in 2024.
So did this just get out of control, or did this get that? Was that the approved budget? What happened?
It went out of control because they had a lot of shooting. They had to shoot at night. They had different day shots. They were shooting. This is all done on Desilu. They had to pay for Joan Collins. They had the special effects, and the story had many different areas. They had to build the place where the Guardian of Forever is. They had to change Mayberry, even though you could see Floyd's barbershop. They do walk by that.
Whatever.
But that's what it really is. Even that phaser shot costs money. Of course. And again, at 10 cents a foot or $94 a foot of film, this is done on film, not video, it costs a lot of money to make these things. This was very well done. At the end, time is restored. They could go on the Enterprise. They're on their way. So that's pretty much it. To me, this is one of the most heartfelt episodes. I'm going to tell you, for me, this to me is one of the more perfect episodes. I'm going to give my score first on our very scientific 1 to 10 scale, unless there's something you want to do first or anything else you want to mention.
Captain.
I'm giving this a 10. I love this episode. It's not perfect, but for me, it's a perfect Star Trek episode. You have adventure. You have the relationship between Kirk, Spock, and McCoy, mainly Kirk and Spock. You have this time travel science-y thing that goes on. To me, it's just a perfect Star Trek episode overall. You have its scientific explanations that make sense. You also have that love and romance, and you have excellent acting all around, as well as effects and music. It's just makes me feel good every time I see it. So that's why I'm giving it a 10. What about you, Mike?
I had this in my mind before you said anything. I thought we were going to link up. 9.
No, that's fine. It's fine.
I have my reasons.
What's your reason? Let's hear.
Just that I felt it was a very good episode, very well acted, very well shot. I felt like when it got a little clunky in the third act, when Edith was randomly nursing McCoy back to health, but Kirk didn't know about it, and there was like a couple of scenes that I thought were just kind of like muddy in terms of why they were happening in this order. And it would have been, I think, more interesting if McCoy had become part of the moral discussion as to whether or not to let Edith die. Well, if it not been, oh my God, there's McCoy. Oh, and Edith is dead. 5 seconds later, if there was a little bit more conflict between them. But listen, that's why it's not a 10. It's not technically perfect. I liked Danger and the Devil in the Dark more. I thought it was a more perfect Star Trek story. But that being said, nothing to cry about, nothing to truly criticize.
I will tell you that there was a love scene, or we're showing a scene there where McCoy was going to be falling in love with Edith Keeler herself, but Pevney decided not to use it because it was taking too long. Shatner also likes Devil with the Dark better as well. Actually, I do too, even though I gave that a 10 as well. These are it's hard to say which one. I'm not saying this is the best Star Trek. I just give it a 10 because of the way it makes me feel and how it's important to me.
Yes.
I could understand why you would give it a 9, 100%. It's not the best Star Trek episode. It's one of the better Star Trek episodes.
Yes, 100%.
I would tell you that I think Devil in the Dark is far superior than this. I'm more on a science fiction level. This has more of a love quotient, but I enjoy both of them. The adventure, we have our triumvirate returned, but I think Shatner really carries a lot of the acting of the emotional stuff in there. It's pretty good. I like the humor that was written in there. And if you read the actual Harlan Ellison script, you'll see the humor is not there. The dialogue is not there. And it doesn't have the same weight. Although the conclusion is the same, where the timeline's restored. But I'm telling you that the way that Roddenberry, Kuhn, Karabatsis, and Fontana redid it, it's a far superior story for television.
I would agree from what you've described.
The Harlan Ellison story is like if you were reading it, you could put it in your head and you go, yeah, that's pretty good. But to film it, I don't know if it would. I'm not saying it's not filmable, even with today's techniques. But for a 1-hour TV show, for what they had, I think they did a fabulous job. It's one of the best things.
Well, not only that, I mean, how are you going to have drug addicts or drug dealing on a Federation starship? Again, he didn't understand what he was dealing with if he thought that was going to be happening.
Yes, that's actually one of the things that Fontana was saying. Like I said, she said the outline was beautifully written, but it's just not Star Trek. By the way, there were no arguments on the set. Everyone worked well together. Everyone liked Joan Collins. They even liked Harlan, who was always procrastinating and hanging out on the set. But when it came down to changing the story, the vitriol from Ellison to everyone in Star Trek got really terrible. They even sent Shatner over to try and be a peacemaker because they got along so well. But Harlan Ellison said all Shatner was talking about was the lines that he wasn't getting, but Spock was. And then he was yelling at Shatner. He yelled at Justman. He yelled at Gene Kuhn. He yelled at Gene Roddenberry. And when he found out that Fontana years later had changed portions of the story, he began to not like Fontana. I mean, that's a petty little man, if you
Angry
will.
Man, sure. Believe it or not, friends with Robin Williams, and if you go onto YouTube, there are some excellent extended conversations recorded of just Robin Williams speaking with Harlan Ellison about everything. Hey, Captain, we're almost at 1 hour.
Yep.
This is our longest episode.
Well, it's one of the better episodes. But anyway, so that pretty much, I guess, wraps it up. I will tell you, our next episode is the last episode in season 1. And then I guess we can do a best of for season 1 before we move on to our next season. Mm-hmm. The next episode is called Operation Annihilate. And we'll find that out on the next episode of Yelling at Gaseous Anomalies. And that's pretty much it. As always, remember, if you like what we do here, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And you can always contact us at yellingatgas@gmail.com. Mike, anything you want to tell our fine, fair viewers out there?
Nope. Do not regret your past. Stick and move. Keep going forward. Who knows? Maybe something you did stupid in your history prevented the next Hitler from coming.
And that's right. And at least find happiness. And that's what you should always do. Well, then that's pretty much it. I guess we'll just wrap it up over here, Mike. As always, everyone, live long and prosper, and see you out there.